Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 277, What If I Say I Shall Not Wait? Now, this is a fascinating poem on a number of counts. How specifically this poem gets interpreted will have a lot to do with our view of Emily. The great scholar Wisher says this is a poem of crisis. And this poem seems to be suggesting that Emily is ready to die. That is to say, there's a strong possibility that there's a whole lot of Hamlet standing behind this poem. That is to say, Hamlet will say, oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, resolve itself into a dew, or that Providence had not fixed his canon against, what does he call it, self-slaughter. And then, of course, later, to be or not to be, that is the question in Hamlet 3. Might he his quietus take with a bare bodkin? Of course, Hamlet, throughout that entire play, and we've given full lectures at learnstrong.net on this play, Hamlet is constantly dealing with the question of, what if I just end it all? And there's readers of this poem that certainly see it this way, no doubt. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side. Again, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've already worked through our set of introductory comments. I'm hopeful that you've also worked through the preceding 276 poems. We just finished with 276, Many a Phrase Has the English Language. Now, when we look at this poem, it is altogether possible that Emily is talking about something other than suicide in regards to her death. But what is clear is that there's a lot of exclamation points here. And notice the first line, what if I say I shall not wait, exclamation point, not question mark, which is fascinating. We got 5 of these exclamation points. What if I say I shall not wait? What if I burst the fleshy gate and pass escaped to thee? What if I file this mortal off, see where it hurt me? That's enough, and wade in liberty. They cannot take me anymore. Dungeons can call and guns implore, unmeaning now to me, as laughter was an hour ago, or laces, or a traveling show, or who died yesterday. Now, the fact that she does use the word died at the end of this makes one begin to think, wow, this is actually a poem where Emily is contemplating dying. Now, I think it's interesting that in 5 poems she uses this what-if construction, and here she does it, notice 3 times. What if I say I shall not wait? Now again, this takes us back to Hamlet. I think there's a lot of Shakespeare that stands behind a lot of Emily's stuff. Certainly, I think in this poem, there's a lot of potentially Hamlet. What does he say in 5:2? The readiness is all. We defy augury, you'll remember. What if I say I shall not wait? What if I burst the fleshy gate, which seems to suggest, obviously, death, and pass, escaped to thee? By the way, this idea of escape takes us back to poem 77, you'll recall. Now, who is the thee? Now, when we get to poem 279, here in a second, that opening line says, tie the strings to my life, my Lord, then I am ready to go, and she'll have this ready to go a second time at the end of the poem, which will sound a whole lot like what she's saying here. I'm ready to go. But who is the thee? Well, it isn't clear. We're going to assume that maybe she's talking about deity. And then a third, what if I file this mortal off? Do you remember that Hamlet will say in Hamlet 3 in his famous to be or not to be speech, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. Her use of the word mortal here, she just doesn't say coil, begins to, I think, bring together our study of Hamlet. What if I file this mortal off, see where it hurts me? That's enough. And by the way, that's the only time that phrase gets used in all of Emily's poetry. That's enough. And wade in liberty, again, back to the Hamlet 3, might his quietus make with a bare bodkin, liberty, freedom, quietus. Then the word they cannot take me. Notice in another rendering of this poem, it's us. They cannot take me anymore. Who is the they? And notice another exclamation point. They who cannot take me anymore. And then she'll start naming things. Well, dungeons can call, guns implore. We saw her use of the word guns in 118, in 172, and then in 754 we'll see it again. My life had stood a loaded gun. Her use of the word gun, and then the word unmeaning, which I think is the hinge word. You know, guys, I've said to you, so many of these poems are constructed around often a single word, and here to me it's this unmeaning. In other words, it seems that she's suggesting, I am ready to go, which will be the language of 2 poems from now in 279, because of the unmeaning. And that sounds, what is it that Hamlet says in Act 1, Scene 2, in the two solid flesh soliloquy, that the world is stale, flat, and unprofitable, seem to be all the meanings of this world. And then he'll say, fie on it, fie. The world is an unweeded garden. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. This argument that there's something unmeaning now to me. All of the things, dungeons can't scare me, guns can't scare me. I'm done. Unmeaning, by the way, doesn't get used any other place in her poetry but here. And then she'll say, as laughter was an hour ago, or laces, or a traveling show, or who died yesterday. By the way, this use of the word yesterday will come back when we do 1222. It's a fascinating use of the word. The riddle we can guess, we've read this poem several times, the riddle we can guess we speedily despise. Not anything is stale so long as yesterday's surprise. I find this a remarkable poem. Now, a lot of people have put 2 other poems together with this poem. I'll read them both to you. We're going to get to them. When we get to 577, if I may have it when it's dead, I'll be contented so. If just as soon as breath is out, it shall belong to me. Until they lock it in the grave, till bliss I cannot weigh. For though they lock thee in the grave, myself can own the key. Think of it, lover, I and thee, permitted face to face to be after a life, a death will say, for death was that, and this is thee. I'll tell thee all, how bald it grew, how midnight felt at first to me, how all the clocks stopped in the world, and sunshine pinched me, 'twas so cold, then how the grief got sleepy, some of it as if my soul were deaf and dumb, just making signs across to thee, that this way thou couldst notice me. I'll tell you how I tried to keep a smile, to show you when this deep all waited, we look back for play at those old times in Calvary. Forgive me if the grave comes slow, for coveting to look at thee. Forgive me if to stroke thy frost out vision's paradise. And then when we get to poem 850, we'll play this game, and I think this is a fascinating poem as well in regards to reading of the poem we're just reading. I sing to use the waiting, my bonnet but to tie, and shut the door into my house, no more to do have I. Till his best step approaching, we journey to the day, and tell each other how we sung to keep the dark away. There is a dark reading of this poem, no doubt, and I think scholars have pointed that out. But I think there is as well a hopeful reading of this poem that she is ready to go. At 2a, the messages here, I think, are self-evident. Sometimes life is hard, and sometimes because life is so hard, we are ready, we are prepared for the escape, for the liberty. At 2b, with the what if phraseology 3 times, and the 5 exclamation points are fascinating to read within this poem. But I think, guys, at 3a, there's a sense that she is ready. Right? The readiness is all, to come back to Hamlet. I think much of this poem is actually just a reconstruction of Hamlet. Finally, at 3b, how do you read this poem? I mean, again, these are chats with Emily, not lectures on Emily, because there's no real way to know. And obviously, if we could have a chat with Emily, we'd say, hey, what was going on when you were playing the game of 277? How do you read it? Do you see her as excited, or do you see her as resigned to the death that's coming? Thank you.